Okay, you can call your next witness.
You're on the state with next call Dr. Amanda Atchoo.
God bless you. God bless you. Can you go check on her?
I'll check her on.
I was told she was here, so she might have run to the restroom.
Needed a break?
The wrong time.
And members of the jury, feel free to stand and stretch. Yes. And you don't need me to let you know you can do that during any break of the action. Feel free to do that on your own regard. I know it gets a little uncomfortable. Are you able to call somebody else, or I'm not sure how long?
May I walk?
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to mess up your routine, but
No, I can see if someone else can use my 2-year-old.
if they're that short, like you mentioned. Doctor. Good afternoon to you, ma'am. Just watch her step over to your right. There's a slight incline. Need a glass of water, let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate you. If there's an objection made, just ask that you pause before answer the question. Give me a chance to rule on the objection, and then we'll go from there. That said, state your main inquiry. You're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Amanda Atchoo.
And could you please spell your last name?
Atchoo.
And where do you generally live?
In the Jacksonville area.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a certified nurse midwife.
And who's your current employer?
UF Health.
And how long?
I've been there for over a year.
And can you tell us a little bit about your educational background?
Sure. I achieved my Doctorate of Nursing Practice degree at Wayne State University in Michigan. It's about 9 years of education. You have to get your Bachelor's of Nursing education first, and then you go on to get your doctoral degree.
And do you also participate in continuing learning education courses as well?
Yes.
And you had stated that you had worked with UF of Health for about a year. Where did you work prior to that?
North Florida OBGYN. It's now WCF, Women's Care of Florida. They were bought out.
And how long did you work for them?
4 years.
And were you also a certified nurse midwife at the time?
Yes.
And what were your duties and responsibilities as a certified nurse midwife with the North Florida OBGYN for what it was named at the time?
I practiced full scope midwifery at that practice, which means I did women care, so annuals, contraception appointments, and of course obstetrics. So if a woman was pregnant, I'd do the confirmation of pregnancy, see them throughout their pregnancy, as well as do their delivery.
Now, I'm going to specifically draw your attention back to December the 13th of 2018. And were you assigned a new patient, I'll say her name first, and then I'll use initials afterwards, of the name Ayanna Sawyer?
Yes.
And did you yourself see IS on December 13th, 2018?
Yes.
And prior to today, have you had an opportunity to review the medical records associated with your visit with IS?
Yes.
Did that help refresh your recollection?
Yes.
And do you also have somewhat of some independent memory as well of meeting with IS?
Yes.
Was anyone with IS when she came for this appointment?
Yes.
And who was that?
Her mother.
And what type of appointment was set with you on this particular date?
A confirmation of pregnancy.
And during your visit, did you also ask what her age was?
Yes.
And how old was she when you saw her?
16.
Now, what did you do, doctor, when you first met with her and you're confirming pregnancy? What are the steps that you take during this visit?
I introduce myself. I get a medical background of any other conditions that may be pre-existing. I get a social history, whether or not they're on drugs, smoking, all those things, surgical history. I also try to develop a baseline rapport. I don't get in depth in the interviewing process because sometimes it's that trust issue. They don't really give you all the information up front, but I just do a basic interview with the patient and establish whether or not she's pregnant and how far along she is.
And Dr. Atchoo, did you determine whether or not IS was pregnant?
Yes.
And what did you opine?
I'm sorry?
I mean, did you verify she was pregnant or not?
Yes.
And was she?
Yes.
And so when determining when someone's pregnant, what are the other factors that you determine in this first visit regarding IS's pregnancy?
Pelvic exam, fundal height, ultrasound, and Doppler tones to confirm a heartbeat.
And were you able to determine that the baby did in fact have a heartbeat?
Yes.
And do you also determine the mother's blood type at that first visit?
Yes, we get a prenatal lab work.
Now, what about the baby's blood type at this juncture? Is that something that you would determine?
No.
And why is that?
It's not available, the test is not available to determine the baby's blood type.
So would that be a test that's done after the baby is born?
Yes.
Now, can you also determine how far along an individual is during this time frame?
Yes.
And were you able to do that with IS?
Yes.
And how far along did you determine IS was on December the 13th, 2018?
22 weeks pregnant.
And how do you determine, doctor, approximately that she was 22 weeks along?
Typically, it's the fundal height that's consistent with how far along they are. And then the ultrasound at that time, we would have been using a femur length. But, yeah.
And did you also, though, ask some additional background information regarding menstrual cycles with IS?
Yes.
And was IS able to provide you that information?
Yes.
And did she provide you approximately the early July timeframe?
Yes.
Now, did IS and her mother request a panorama to be conducted?
Yes.
What is a panorama?
It's a genetic test that determines whether or not there's any genetic abnormalities that the baby's at risk for, such as Down syndrome. Is the most common one that people want to test for, but amongst other ones.
And can it also determine the gender of the baby?
Yes.
And was that done in this case?
Yes.
And was the gender female?
Yes.
Now, during the entirety of this appointment that you had with IS, was her mother present?
Yes.
Is that common, doctor, for a certified midwife like yourself, when a juvenile is involved, to also have the parent or legal guardian present?
It depends.
In this particular case, why did that happen, if you recall?
Typically, when it does happen, it's because the patient says it's okay if the mother's in the room.
Now, was there any information provided to you during this visit of who the father was?
No.
Did you notice anything in particular about IS's demeanor during her visit?
Yes.
What did you observe?
I documented that she was not making eye contact and that she was looking at the floor throughout our discussion.
And based upon that body language and observations that you observed, had you already made an opinion regarding how you were going to treat the second appointment?
Yes.
And what were you going to do?
Once the mother's in the room or any type of family member that's in the room, it's very hard to backtrack. The second you say, I need you to step out of the room to ask questions, you know, the stress level rises and then there's a lot of tension. So I documented that so I would know the next time to let the medical assistant know that the patient needs to be brought back by themselves so I could do a screening for any type of abuse.
And did you also wanted to potentially see if you could get a rapport with IS regarding the father situation?
Yes.
And was that based upon her age?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello, good afternoon.
Decided to leave Michigan and get away from the cold, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay. With that being said, so you met with IS. Do you remember approximately the date?
It was documented as December 13th of 2018.
Okay. Now, when you met with her, I'm going to kind of pick up where you left off and work a little bit backwards, if you don't mind. You just stated that she was looking down and away, and in your training experience, that you were concerned if there was signs of abuse. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see signs of abuse?
No.
Okay. It was just, you couldn't get IS to open up to you to have a normal exchange if it had just been maybe you and her.
Correct.
Okay. So she was very quiet, timid?
Yes.
Okay. Now, during the course of your exam, you stated that you did not establish the blood type of the child, correct?
Yes.
Could you have done that at that point?
No.
Okay, too soon?
No, the testing's not available to determine the baby's blood type at
Okay.
that time.
Was there any blood drawn to determine DNA or anything like that?
No, you can't do that.
Okay. And so basically you just were confirming the pregnancy at that point, and then there was going to be a follow-up to make sure that the baby is healthy and developing properly and things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in the course of your interview in that, is it in fact true this was IS's first pregnancy, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did she relay to you that there was any history of sexual abuse?
No.
And she did not open up to you and tell you who the father was either, did she?
Not at that time. No.
Was there any mention of who the father was or could be?
Not from her. No. She didn't tell me.
Okay. May I have just a second, Counsel, or Your Honor? No further questions, Your Honor?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Doctor, good to see you, ma'am. Thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you.